Hi friends! Welcome if you're new here, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Elise, and this is my mystical bookshelf. And today, I am going to be talking about an insane horror book called How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. And I don't have the physical book with me, but I listened to it on Audible, and it is a great audiobook to listen to, like insanely great. I don't remember who the narrator was. I don't think it says, but she did a great job. Like, that was a really good book to listen to. That I would highly recommend listening to it versus actually reading it. But I usually listen to Grady Hendrix on audiobook. I don't know why. I just really like him with his storytelling, and I like the narrators that are chosen for the books. I think they're super interesting, and this is the 4th book that I've read from him. I have read The Southern Lady's Guide to Vampire Slaying. I actually did read that book. I should listen to the audiobook, but because I actually bought that book last year, and that was super good too. But yeah, so I listened to that one. And what other one did I listened to My Best Friend's Exorcism, which was also super good. And then I've read this, How to Sell a Haunted House. And maybe I've only read 3 of his books, maybe not 4. But either way, he's a great author, and I really enjoy reading him and listening to his stories or reading his stories. They're super interesting. And this book was no exception. This book is basically about Louise and her brother Mark, and I'm going to pull up the synopsis because it is very interesting. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. Hello again. Okay, I found it. So I'm going to read a little bit of it. It says, when Louise finds out her parents have died, she dreads going home. She doesn't want to leave her daughter with her ex and fly to Charleston. She doesn't want to deal with her family home, stuffed to the rafters with the remnants of her father's academic career and her mother's lifelong obsession with puppets and dolls. She doesn't want to learn how to live without the 2 people who knew and loved her best in the world. And most of all, she doesn't want to deal with her brother, Mark, who never left their hometown, gets fired from one job after another, and resents her success. Unfortunately, she'll need his help to get the house ready for sale, because it'll take more than some new paint on the walls and clearing out a lifetime of memories to get this place on the market. So yeah, this book was crazy, and it definitely deals with a lot of heavy themes, which I wasn't expecting that going in, but it definitely added some richness and fullness into the story, and it made the horror really well-rounded in my opinion. It feels almost like a classic Stephen King book to me, because I feel like Grady Hendrix has no chill when it comes to his characters and having them suffer, because this book was very gory. And I will mention, if you do not like body horror, I recommend not reading this, because there is a very detailed description of Mark getting his arm sawed off by Louise once he's like being controlled by this weird puppet that their mom had that she was like totally in love with. So let me back up a little bit. So this puppet is named Pupkin, and it's like this weird clown puppet doll thing. And he's the main catalyst in this whole story. He is crazy, for one, and for the longest time I thought it was a demon puppet, but it wasn't. That's where I kind of like fell off a little bit with the book, the horror aspect, because I thought it was going to be more supernatural. I thought it was going to be more like demon-esque, but the puppet is actually controlled, and this is like a ginormous spoiler because it was like really towards the end where you figure out who Pupkin is. He's actually controlled by Louise's mom's sister, or not sister, brother, Freddie. So Louise's mom is named Nancy, and she had this little brother named Freddie. And Freddie died in this freak accident. I think he drowned or something. And it was Nancy's fault pretty much because Nancy was like 7 and she was supposed to be watching Freddie, who was 2 years younger than her. And she got distracted by something. I mean, little kids do get distracted. I know she was 7, but 7 is still pretty young to understand what was going on at the time. So, yeah, Freddie drowns. And that's like the whole big secret of this book and this family, is that Freddie's death was like this huge trauma that happened in their family. And like nobody ever talked about it, and Louise's Aunt Honey never talked about it either, and that was mainly the catalyst for like this whole story, is Freddie dying basically. But let me see how I want to word this. I just thought it was interesting that it ended up being a little kid spirit that was haunting this puppet and not a demon, because some of the things that Pupkin did, it was like, why wouldn't it be a demon? Because it was very hardcore to believe that a little boy was making all these people do all these crazy things. And I don't know, that's where it lost me, honestly, because I would have given it 5 stars if it would have been like, this puppet was actually a conduit and not like an attachment of a little kid, because it makes it more believable if it was a demon, because there's some pretty hardcore things that happen in this book, like Mark getting his arm, like he literally gets like his arm this down sawed off by Louise because he has Pupkin like attached to his arm. And Pupkin is weird because when the puppet is attached to you, it like takes your life away from you, which is also why I thought it was a demon. Because how can a little kid's spirit do that? Really, I don't know. It just doesn't seem realistic. It would make more sense if it was a demon. But yeah. So that was the most graphic part of the book. And the other parts about Mark and the way he was treated when he had Pupkin was also pretty graphic. Apparently, he like committed arson with the puppet on his arm, like he was pretending to be Pupkin, and apparently 2 of his friends died because of it in this house fire that he couldn't have stopped somehow. I don't know. So that part was pretty graphic too. But overall, I gave the book 5 stars. I really think it would have been better if Pupkin would have been controlled by a demon rather than Freddie. But like the main theme with this book was helping Freddie pass on. But I don't know, it just kind of made me sad because it's like this little kid like died a horrible death, and then he was like traumatizing everybody that he was haunting, and then he was expected to just pass on and enjoy his afterlife. I don't know, it just seemed really unrealistic to me. It would have made me feel better if it was a demon, honestly, because then everything would be more excusable, because it's like, okay, a demon causes mischief, a demon causes hazards and stuff, so it would make more sense if it was a demon causing all of this trauma in the book, but it wasn't. It ended up being Freddie. And I think like the best part for me was when Louise's aunt, her Aunt Gail, was trying to help her exorcise the demon out of this puppet because she didn't realize it was Freddie. And I just thought that part was super interesting and really funny. That was probably the funniest part of the book for me, because I was like, go Gail, let's get this demon, let's do it. And then you figure out it's a little kid and you're like, oh, okay, well, whatever. But yeah, this book definitely deals with family trauma, and I would say the most annoying part of the book was probably Louise and Mark's relationship. Like, there's definitely some brother and sister rivalry going on, and Mark is really whiny throughout the whole book, which is another thing that I would, if you don't like whiny main characters, don't read this, because it's definitely annoying. and it annoyed me throughout the whole book, but I pushed through because it was interesting, and I really liked Louise. I stayed mainly for Louise. I didn't stay for Mark. And I don't know, I feel like Grady was trying to make the reader sympathetic towards Mark, but it just wasn't happening for me. I was not sympathetic towards him. I was more sympathetic towards Louise, because I feel like Louise had a lot of trauma happen to her, because she was mainly Pupkin's like antagonist, I guess. Which is also why I thought it was a demon, because it seemed like it was more of an attachment to Louise instead of Mark, because it seemed like Pupkin really did not like Louise at all throughout the whole book. Like, he wanted her dead, he wanted to hurt her, it was crazy, and he went after her daughter because Louise has a 5-year-old child named Poppy, and Pupkin attaches itself to Poppy, which is also why I thought it was a demon, because normally demons go after, they either go after like weak-spirited people or they go after children, and it just made sense that it would go after Poppy because she's so young still and so open to the spiritual world. And Pupkin kind of like almost drains the life out of Poppy. I think he almost kills her because he's so attached to her. So that's, I don't know, it just made me feel weird that it ended up just being like a little kid haunting this puppet, and it couldn't let it go. I really think Grady should have totally leaned in more with the supernatural side of it. That's my biggest grievance with the whole book, because overall I gave it 4 stars. It was a really good book to listen to, and I would totally recommend listening to it on audiobook. I would say that's mainly my big thing, is I wished it leaned more into the supernatural side of it rather than helping a spirit pass on, because it just didn't seem as realistic to the story. But in the end, it ends well. It ends with Freddy passing on and Pupkin like going away, I guess, because the puppet has no more attachments to the world once Freddy's gone, which is interesting. And I think they end up selling the house eventually, even though the biggest, actually no, this is another big part that kind of freaked me out. So Freddy's remains were actually at the house, which I thought was super duper freaky, and like nobody wanted to buy the house after that once they found Freddy's remains at the house and after Freddy passed on and stuff, which is understandable. I wouldn't want to buy a house either if there was a little kid dead body out there. I would not want to do it. I don't want to mess around with that, because that sounds bad. But yeah, overall it ends well. I think Louise goes back to where she originated from, and her daughter's happy now, and everything is thriving, and I even think Mark gets a little bit better towards the end, but overall his character was a big grievance for me too. Like, everything he said, he was so whiny, he was so on Louise about everything, and I just wanted to tell him to shut up like 90% of the time. But overall, I would say it was a good book. I would totally recommend reading it. But if you don't like body horror, I feel like that's the biggest thing, is the fact that it's gory. I just think that's the biggest thing with this book. But overall, I gave it 4 stars, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I love Grady Hendrix. He is one of my favorite authors. He writes really good books, and I can't wait to read more of him, honestly. I need to figure out what I'm going to read next from him, because he's really good. But thank you for watching my video. Thank you for liking and subscribing if you chose to do that. And I just really appreciate all the support and watching my videos. That means the world to me, honestly. And I will see you guys in the next video. So goodbye, friends.